Hey there, English Expander. It's me, Agnes, here, and welcome to the Expand Your English video show, episode number 5. Today, I'm going to talk about some myths that hold you back from speaking English fluently. And you should know why I talk about these topics is because I'm an experienced English teacher in Hungary. I've been teaching English for 15 years now, and I also have an online program which prepares my students for the speaking test in Hungary, the most popular speaking test in Hungary. And believe it or not, knock on wood, I have had 14 successful students who went through my program and did their speaking tests. Yes, and they passed them. And I'm also an academic manager at Don't Panic Language School, which is in Hungary, near Budapest. And if you want to meet me in person, you can join our courses there anytime. But as you know, I don't like talking about myself. I like talking about you. And this is why the question of the day today is also about you. The question of the day today is, do you have a private teacher who teaches you one-on-one? Or do you study on your own at home and prepare for the language test, for the speaking test? Or maybe you go to a language school where professional teachers prepare you for your language test. I'm really interested. I will tell you my own experience while you're typing the comments, while you're typing your answers in the comments. I didn't start English until I was 14. So my first ever English lesson was at secondary school. And you know, they say that you can't really learn a language very well unless you start it really early or at a really early age. But I don't know if my English is good for you or not, but I think it's better than the average. And I started learning English when I was 14. I had 8 lessons a week, 8 English lessons a week. Then we had 5 or 4. And that was it. I didn't have a private teacher back then, and I didn't go to language school. I only went to the secondary school, and believe it or not, my English was not very good back then, but it got better and better when I got into university and I surrounded myself with English. And what about you? Do you have a private teacher? Tell us in the comments. If you are proud of him or her, write them down in the comments below. Or do you go to a language school? Or you're preparing on your own from home? I'm really interested. Now, there are some myths that hold you back from speaking English fluently. And there are tons of myths, actually. But today I'm going to talk about 2. The first is that a lot of people fear talking in English at the English lesson. It's really weird for them to talk to a Hungarian teacher an English teacher who is Hungarian. They fear to talk to them in English because they think it's unnatural, it's not their mother tongue. So both of them know Hungarian, so why not speak in Hungarian? And then it's of course sometimes easier to translate the unknown words into Hungarian from English if you don't understand something. So they don't really talk in English in the English lessons. Did you have a teacher like this? Or did you try not to speak in English with your teacher so that they explained you the grammar in Hungarian, or they translated the words for you? if you're like this, and if you think that in the English lesson you can speak Hungarian as much as you want, then I have bad news for you. You're never going to be able to pass your speaking test with good marks, because I think the most important thing is to force yourself to speak English and only English in the English lessons, even at beginner levels or elementary levels. That's my, that's my ars poetic, which I always talk about, because in that way you get used to the language, and you get used to the unnatural situation of the speaking test. There are Hungarians sitting on a speaking test. In Hungary, not many native English speakers are examiners. So you're going to talk to a Hungarian examiner in your speaking test. And sometimes it happens, believe it or not, that during the speaking test, some students want to say the words in Hungarian. It's unbelievable. Their teacher or I don't know, their mentor hasn't taught them that it's impossible to behave like this. And it's because during the English lessons they didn't speak only English, but also they used their mother tongues. It's tiring to speak English for 60 or 90 minutes, I know. It's really tiring. It makes you unbelievably exhausted first. But then, step by step, you get used to it. And if you try not to translate the words into Hungarian to check the meaning with your English teacher, but you're going to give a definition of the word that you maybe don't know in English, or you ask for a definition. You ask a definition from your teacher about a word that you don't understand in English. In that way, you will get more and more confident. Did you feel that before? Type yes or no in the comments. Did you feel that when you didn't or don't speak English in your English lessons? English, what am I talking about? If you don't speak Hungarian in your English lessons, you get more and more confidence, and you feel that you achieved something during these 60 or 90 minutes. All right, so my tip is first, if you have the money and the possibility, find a native English teacher. If you really fear talking in English with your Hungarian English teacher, then you can find a native English speaker. But my idea is that also non-native English teachers can have wonderful English lessons, wonderfully active and practical English lessons. And when you have a non-native English teacher, then you should force yourself not to speak any words in Hungarian during your English lesson. Yes, it's going to be tiring and exhausting, but you're going to be so proud of yourself when you talk in English 2 times a week for 60 or 90 minutes. Now, please tell me, do you get tired after speaking English for 60 or 90 minutes in a row? Type yes or no in the comments. I'm really interested in that. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to tell you in the beginning that at the end of the show, I'm going to answer your questions, if you have any, in connection with the preparation for the speaking test in English, or you know what, anything about language learning. Type your questions in the comments below, and I'm here for you at the end of the show to answer them personally for you. Now, I'm going to check the comments. I can see that hi, Esther is here. Hi, Esther. Nice to see you. I'm really happy to see you here in the show. And Esther was my my students in the online speaking lessons with Don't Panic Online English. Right, I also, yes, forgot to mute my computer. Tundi's here. Hi Tundi, nice to have you here. Esther is here, and Ildi is here. Hello Ildi, this goes for you. Right, so the first myth was that you can't speak English with your non-native English speaker teacher all the time, but that's not true, because I can tell you that I also speak in English and only in English in my classes. All right, the second myth, or the next myth today, is that a lot of people think that two things would be necessary for them in preparation for the language exam, or mainly the speaking test. One is that they should study each and every vocabulary connected to a certain topic, words, and the other one that they should study the grammar by heart and use perfect grammar all the time during the speaking test. A lot of people think, and a lot of people still think, 8 out of 10 of my students think that the most important thing in a speaking test is your grammar, and that's not true. It's a myth. Grammar points are not as important as communicational points in a speaking test. 25% of the points is the grammar, and more than 50% of the points in the speaking test is about communication. So what you need to forget is using and cramming in every verb tense that you can think of in English. A lot of my students told me that they want to use as many verb tenses during the speaking test as they can. They even try to use the future perfect continuous, will have done. Oh my gosh. In a speaking test, of course, English speakers hardly ever use that verb tense. Of course, it's important to speak English accurately. I mean, it's not a big problem if you mix two verb tenses which are very close to each other, like past simple and present perfect. That's not the end of the world. But what you should pay attention to is that the examiners should understand your ideas, and this is the most important thing. If your ideas can be understood, but you use some grammar mistakes, that's not the worst part of your exam. It's much worse if you don't react to the examiner's questions or to the examiner's sentences. So what you need to practice is not the grammar and the verb tenses, but how to react to people's ideas or to questions, or how to, you know what they are? They are functions. For example, do you know how to suggest something to somebody, or how to give advice to somebody? Or do you know how to accept an invitation in English? Not many of you do, I think, but this is much more important than studying stupid grammar rules by heart, you know? And I told you that you need to study complete expressions, not words, but longer expressions. I mean, what about going to the cinema instead of go to the cinema? But study what about going to the cinema. That's making a suggestion or organizing a program together with your partner. So words are not enough, and a lot of application only teach you words alone. But what I would suggest that you should do is study longer expressions, and you can find these longer expressions on the internet, of course, or in course books. you know, when they teach you situations, there you shouldn't just learn the words from the situations, but the complete sentences. Are you ready to order, sir? Or I will have a roast beef, please, or something like that. These are called functions, okay? So they are used in different situations, right? You need to collect all the different functions that you can think of or that you can find in a course book and study them, because this will get you closer to your pass mark. Now, my question of the day was that do you have a private teacher or who teaches you one-on-one, or do you study on your own, or maybe do you study at a language school with a professional English teacher? I'm really interested in your answers. Please tell them in the comments below. Right. Not many of you commented yet, but that's not a big problem for me now, because I can see that some of you have private teachers, but some of you don't even have teachers, and that's not a problem, because today you can find lots of interesting materials on the internet, right? If you have any questions, write them down in the comments, and I'm going to answer them after the show, and I will help you in every little details that you are interested in your preparation for the language test. Right, and if you're interested in more of my tips for preparing for the speaking test, then join my 3-part video series, which are in Hungarian. You can find them in my website, englishexpander.net, and you can also read tons of tips on my blog, blog.englishexpander.net, and you can meet me in person, and this is the only place where I teach students right now. It's in Don't Panic English Language School near Budapest in Érd, where I have lots of English lessons from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have lessons from beginner level to B2 and even to advanced level. So see you next week, and I'm preparing with more topics for you. If you have any ideas what you want to hear about, just type your ideas in the comments below, and I'm going to be here for you. That's all for now. I would love to hear from you, and see you next week. Bye, everybody.